look at these three things. First of all, in verse 3, look at it. Paul tells us here in a general sense that the thing that will characterize everything about the Antichrist, including both his own personal life and also what he'll promote from his position of power, the way that he's generally characterized is as the man of, and this is the word here, get it, lawlessness. Lawlessness. He's the man of lawlessness. We talked briefly about the Greek word last week. Remember, it's anomia, which basically most simply means no law. You take the Greek word for law and you attach that prefix "a" to it, and what you get from that is no law or without law. It's the way that he's going to live his life. That's the indication here. It's going to be the thing that is the most indicative of his character. And just in a general sense, let me remind you that whatever is indicative of your character, that's going to be the thing that really tells the world the way that you live life. You're always going to follow the pursuits of your heart. The Antichrist's heart is going to be all about lawlessness. That's the way that he's going to live his life. Put another way, he's going to live, see this, in open and in complete defiance of God's law. You know why the world works even as well as it does, even though it's fallen? You know why there's restraint in society, and specifically why there would be more restraint in Western society than in some other places? It's because to some degree in generations past, we've sort of taken these principles that come out of this book. We've sort of taken some of these principles of law, and those are the things that we really order our society on. You know, it's this book that tells us that it's wrong to kill and to steal and to rob and to do all of those other things, to lie. And it's to the extent that a society embraces those things that really the spirit of having no law is held at bay. Well, Antichrist is going to seek to come along and to turn the tables on all of that stuff. He's going to be the man of lawlessness. He's going to want to push God's law aside. He's going to live in defiance of God's law, and he's going to encourage the people on the earth to also live in defiance of God's law. Obviously, it'll be evident in his personal behavior. Obviously, then, it will be evident in his policies. And we're not going to spend a lot of time here, but I want you to remember that he is going to rise ultimately, really, to the pinnacle of world domination. He's going to rule the world as an absolute dictator. If you go into Daniel chapter 11, you'll see that he's described there as the willful king. The king who does not have any regard for anybody or anything but himself. He does what he wants. His policies are going to be lawless policies. That's going to be the way that he's going to seek to govern. Another thing, though, that I want you to see is besides just governing in that way, you should also see that the Antichrist is going to be transparent about his hatred of God as well. It's going to be clear. Sometimes we live in a time where even if politicians act as though they hate God, they still profess to love Him, right? Is that true? That's not going to be true of the Antichrist. He's going to be transparent that he hates God and that he hates the people of God. In fact, the Scripture tells us that he will speak and promote monstrous things against God and against Christ and against believers. Daniel chapter 7 verse 25 says, now listen to this, he will speak out against the Most High, and he will wear down the saints of the Highest One. And listen to Revelation chapter 13. We're going to spend a little more time today in Revelation. Revelation 13, 5 and 6 describes some of this hatred of God and the way that it's going to come out. Listen to these verses. John writes, there was given to him a mouth. Now listen, speaking arrogant words and blasphemies. And the authority to act for 42 months was given to him. And so that's looking at the greater half of the tribulation. Listen to verse 6. And he opened his mouth in blasphemies against God to blaspheme. Do you see how many times? Count blasphemies in there. It's going to be his agenda. He opens his mouth in blasphemies against God to blaspheme God's name and God's tabernacle, that is those who dwell in heaven. You see, that is going to be the result of this unrestrained lawlessness that he's going to live out. It tells you about his character. It really tells you about the thing that he really is going to be the most concerned with that will characterize him. It's going to be lawlessness, the hatred of God. There's a second thing here in these verses, a second thing here that Paul tells us about Antichrist's career that you need to see. And the second thing is that his career is going to be empowered by satanically enabled deception. Think about what he's going to try to do. He's going to aim for world domination. You know, that's not a new thing in the histories of man, right? This is something that has long been sought. It's been sought even in our time. Really hasn't been achieved, but it will be temporarily achieved through the Antichrist. And so you look at that and you say, how is he going to pull that off? Hitler couldn't pull it off. How is the Antichrist going to pull that off? Well, we know that it's going to be through satanic enablement, and specifically through satanically empowered deception. Look at verse 9 in chapter 2, and we'll also get over into 10 there. Look what Paul tells us here. He's going to be successful in this because his coming is in accord with the activity of Satan. That's the key here. Again, he's going to be a human being, but he's going to be one so completely sold out to the devil that he also will have the power of the devil really to some extent at his disposal. You keep reading there, it says that is what's going to enable his coming. It's that satanically derived power that will enable his coming to be, look at the rest here, with all power and signs and false wonders, and look at 10, and with all the deception of wickedness for those who perish. So what do you take from that? Well, you should take from that deception will be the Antichrist's aim. Right? Deception is going to be the goal that he shoots for. It will be his aim. And by the way here, the statement, now look at this, the statement that his coming is in accord with the activity of Satan, what that means is that his power and his desire will come directly from Satan. And this is very basic. But be sure that you understand here that Satan desires one thing for every single person. One thing. Do you know what it is? He desires their destruction. Desires their destruction. And to ensure their destruction, what does he have to do? He has to be able to deceive them. In the case of unbelievers, he has to be able to keep them deceived. And so what you should understand here is that the Antichrist, again, will be so absolutely in league with Satan that he will share the devil's desire to the point that he will really want to deceive people so that he can destroy them. Destruction. So again, the question, how's he going to do that? Well, the answer is that he's going to be successful in that, in misleading and deceiving people. He's going to be successful in leading people to destruction because he's going to have at his disposal all of the evil supernatural resources of hell. Absolutely everything that the devil and his demons can muster. Go back to verse 9 another time. Look, Paul says his coming is in accord with the activity. Now that's the word that you need to grab there. His coming, Antichrist's coming, is in accord with the activity of Satan. Now, the Greek word that we translate there as activity is energeia. Energeia. And it's an interesting word because whenever you find it used in the New Testament, and it's used a number of times, but whenever you find it used in the New Testament, it is only used of supernatural power, of superhuman power that is beyond the ability of man. Usually you find it used in connection with the power of God, but you do find it in a couple of instances, as you find it here, used with connection to the power of the devil. And so, again, it's an obvious point, but be sure you get it. Antichrist's power source will be supernatural. And what does that mean? Well, that means that he's going to be enabled to apparently explode onto the world stage, and you can imagine all of this with the media that we've got in the world today. He's going to explode onto the world stage, look at what Paul says, with all power, and with all signs, and with all false wonders. Which is again to say he's going to explode onto the scene with absolutely everything that Satan will be able to muster, and the world will be spellbound.